Will the prophecy be fulfilled, or is it the beginning of World War III? More than just a simple analysis, let's draw direct parallels with the events unfolding right before our eyes, especially in the Middle East. Our goal is clear: to understand the relationship between this ancient prophecy and the recent tensions between Israel and Iran, as well as to observe the formation of powerful alliances that seem to echo descriptions from millennia ago. For those who may not be familiar, Ezekiel 38 is one of the most fascinating and, at the same time, enigmatic texts in the scriptures. In it, the prophet Ezekiel describes a future attack against the nation of Israel, led by a mysterious figure named Gog from the land of Magog, in alliance with several nations. He speaks of an invasion coming from the uttermost north, with a clear objective: to take plunder from an Israel that would be living in safety and prosperity, without walls or gates. It is a vivid description of a conflict of epic proportions, culminating in a spectacular divine intervention in defense of Israel. But why is this prophecy so relevant today? Simply because the current geopolitical scenario in the Middle East, with its intricate relationships, growing tensions, and the formation of new alliances, seems to many to mirror the conditions described by Ezekiel. The rise of Iran as a regional power, Russia's increasing influence in Syria and other areas, and the complex relations between nations like Turkey, Libya, and Sudan lead us to question: are we witnessing the first signs of this prophecy being fulfilled? This is what we will explore in detail in this video. Get ready for a journey of knowledge that may change the way you see world events. Who are Gog and his allies today? Now that we've contextualized the prophecy, let's delve into current theological interpretations, a field where debate is rich and evidence is accumulating. The first major question that arises when reading Ezekiel 38 is: who are Gog and Magog today? For many theologians and eschatology scholars, textual and historical clues point to a very specific identification. Many modern interpretations see Gog as a figure, possibly a leader from the land of Magog, which was historically associated with the Scythian tribes that inhabited regions north of the Black Sea, meaning the area that today corresponds to Russia. The mention of Rosh in Ezekiel 38.2, which can be translated as the Prince of Rosh, has been interpreted by theologians like Louis Saillon and other scholars as a direct reference to modern Russia. They argue that the phonetics and geographical location align perfectly with this interpretation, making Russia a strong candidate to be the leader of this invading coalition. But Magog doesn't come alone. Ezekiel's prophecy lists a series of allies who will join Gog in attacking Israel. Among them, one of the most prominent is Persia. And here lies a crucial point for our current analysis. Persia is the ancient name of the country we now know as Iran. Theologians and historians unanimously affirm that modern Iran is the direct heir of ancient Persia. This connection is vital, as it positions Iran as a central player in the alliance described in Ezekiel 38. Iran's growing influence in the Middle East, its nuclear program, and its anti-Israel rhetoric fit alarmingly into the profile of one of Gog's main allies. In addition to Persia, other countries are mentioned: Kush and Put, generally identified as modern-day Ethiopia and Libya, respectively; Gomer and Togarma, often associated with parts of Turkey and neighboring regions. Sudan is also pointed out by some scholars. Turkey, in particular, which is a NATO member, has demonstrated an increasingly independent foreign policy and, at times, diverging from Western interests, drawing closer to Russia and Iran on various fronts. Libya, with its political instability and the presence of mercenary groups, and Sudan, with its strategic position in Northeast Africa, also become important pieces in this prophetic puzzle. The convergence of these geographical and political identities with the nations mentioned in Ezekiel is what makes this prophecy so impactful today. We are not talking about random nations, but geopolitical actors that today share interests and, in many cases, demonstrate animosity toward Israel. This is the foundation upon which we will build our analysis of current alliances: the alliance against Israel, contemporary parallels, and Israel's resilience. Now, with theological identities in mind, Let's draw parallels with the current geopolitical scenario. This is where Ezekiel 38's prophecy takes on a disturbingly real dimension. The alliances forming today, the power dynamics and the converging interests between nations like Russia, Iran, Turkey, Libya, and Sudan seem to echo, impressively, the description of the coalition against Israel. Let's start with Russia. Its military and political presence in Syria, support for the Assad regime, and increasing influence in the Middle East are undeniable. Russia has sought to expand its sphere of influence in the region, placing it in a central role in any future coalition. Its relationship with Iran has tightened considerably, especially in military and energy terms. Both nations view the United States and Israel as obstacles to their own regional interests, creating a base for a strategic alliance. Iran, as mentioned, is modern-day Persia and a main protagonist in the prophecy. Its nuclear program, support for groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, and its openly hostile rhetoric toward Israel make it a declared adversary of the Jewish nation. Iran's pursuit of regional hegemony positions it directly in a collision course with Israeli and Western interests. The Iran-Russia alliance is not merely theoretical. It manifests in joint military exercises, diplomatic coordination, and intelligence sharing. Turkey, under Erdogan's leadership, has shown a remarkable strategic shift. Although a NATO member, its foreign policy has increasingly leaned toward an independent stance, seeking a leadership position in the Islamic world and greater autonomy from the West. Turkey has moved closer to Russia on various issues, such as Syria, and has historical and current tensions with Israel. The possibility of Turkey joining the BRICS, for example, as reported by the Middle East Monitor, is a clear sign of its strategic realignment, moving away from traditional alignments and seeking new partnerships that may eventually include it in a coalition with Russia and Iran. Libya and Sudan also fit into this scenario. Libya, a country ravaged by civil war and with the presence of various armed groups, has been a stage for foreign interference, including Russia's, which has sought to establish a presence in the Mediterranean through its mercenary groups like the Wagner Group. CNN Brazil, for example, reported the supply of missiles by the Wagner Group to paramilitary forces in Sudan, highlighting Russia's growing influence in the Horn of Africa region. Sudan, in turn, is in a strategic geographical position, and its instability makes it vulnerable to external influences that may align with Gog's interests. Observing these geopolitical movements, the parallels with Ezekiel 38 are undeniable. We are seeing the formation of a coalition of nations, many of them with a history of antagonism toward Israel, seemingly uniting under a leadership that, for many, aligns with the biblical description. The question arises, will Israel withstand this powerful alliance? Historically, Israel has always been a resilient nation. Despite its small size, it possesses one of the most well-trained and equipped armies in the world, with cutting-edge technology and a robust defense system, including the Iron Dome. Its intelligence capability is widely recognized. Additionally, Israel has strong alliances with Western powers, especially the United States, which has an unwavering commitment to Israel's security. However, Ezekiel's prophecy suggests a spectacular divine intervention in favor of Israel, not necessarily a military victory by its own forces. This does not diminish the importance of Israeli preparation and defense, but points to an outcome that transcends human capability. The prophecy describes a crushing defeat of the invaders through earthquakes, confusion, and plagues, demonstrating that God's hand will be present to protect his people. Thus, the answer to the question of Israel's survival, from a prophetic perspective, is a resounding yes, but not by its own strength, and instead by divine intervention. The beginning of World War III, or prophetic fulfillment? We come to one of the most crucial and debated points of our analysis: the current events in the Middle East, the formation of these alliances, and the growing tension between Israel and Iran. Are they the harbinger of World War III or the direct fulfillment of Ezekiel 38's prophecy? Or perhaps both are interconnected in some way? The idea of a third world war is frightening, especially considering the nuclear arsenal of some of the nations involved. Many geopolitical analysts point to the Middle East as a powder keg, where any spark could ignite a global conflagration. The rivalry between Israel and Iran, tensions between the US and Russia, and the complex web of alliances and enmities create a scenario where a large-scale conflict seems increasingly possible. However, the biblical perspective offers a different lens for this situation. Ezekiel 38's prophecy describes a specific event, an invasion of Israel by a coalition led by Gog. The defeat of this coalition is attributed to a direct divine intervention, with earthquakes, plagues, and confusion among the invaders, culminating in a clear manifestation of God's glory to the nations. This suggests that, while the conflict may be of catastrophic proportions for those involved, it is not necessarily the beginning of a global war in the traditional sense, but rather a prophetic event with a specific divine purpose. Many theologians and Bible scholars believe that the events we are witnessing are indeed the fulfillment of the biblical prophecy before our eyes in today's world. The convergence of the geographical identifications of the nations, the alliances forming, and the atmosphere of tension in the Middle East are strong indicators for this view. It is not about divination, but about observing the signs of the times through the lens of the Scriptures. It is fascinating to note how events align. The restoration of Israel as a nation in 1948, the recovery of Jerusalem, and the nation's growing prosperity place it in a position that, for some, fulfills the description in Ezekiel 38:8. After many days you will be visited. In the latter years you will come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel which have been always waste. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely all of them. Ezekiel 38's prophecy, therefore, can be seen not only as a warning, but as a confirmation of God's sovereignty over human history. Regardless of how events unfold and whether they culminate in a Third World War or a more localized fulfillment of the prophecy, what is undeniable is that we are living in times of great prophetic significance. Observing the signs of the times, throughout this video, we've explored the deep connection between Ezekiel 38's ancient prophecy and current geopolitical events in the Middle East. We've seen how modern theologians and scholars identify Russia as Gog of Magog and Iran as ancient Persia, both aligning with other nations.